I know you're here because of the title, and let's just say this session at Champions Club does not disappoint. The vibes are high at the table as we sip on some adult beverages and I feast on their world famous ribeye steak. I'm enjoying myself, but little did I know that later on in the night, I'd be playing a $40,000 pot versus one of the biggest action players in all of Texas, especially when the end of the hand takes a surprising twist that I have never seen before in over 10 years of poker. We jump right into the action with Queen 4 of diamonds from the +2. The nit game is on for $100 a pop, which means I have to get in there, especially when I'm heads up with Matt. I decide to limp. Matt immediately decides to punish me by going all in for his remaining 3,400 chips. Action's back over to me, and now we're in quite the spot.
Turn on the camera.
Go snap
It's already on.
You got like, what do you got?
Oh my God. Tell the audience, look what I'm about to call him with. Tell him.
If I fold my Queen 4 suited, which seems like the move 9 times out of 10, I'm immediately gonna have to pay everyone at the table $100. So a $700 loss straight out of the gate does not seem fun. I decide to get a little gambly here in Houston and give back to the poker community, or maybe just get it in as a 40% dog, and maybe we can suck out on Matt. After a little bit of thought, I put in the money. The rest of the table is surprised to see such a speculative holding. We're gonna go off to 5 cards, and it's anyone's flop at this point. While it's not my flop, a 10-9-3 board gives me a few more ideas on the turn, and we get a gin card which comes the 8 of diamonds, giving me a gutter and also a backdoor flush draw. Matt calls for a black card, and a black card, he gets the 4 of clubs.
The 4 of clubs, the out we forgot to mention.
Welcome back.
Bang! We river him with a pair, a $6,900 pot getting shipped over my way. And Matt, you gotta be more specific when you call for a black card, because that 4 sent you to the rails. I put the $50 straddle out there and look down at Ace King offsuit, a premium. Hopefully we get a bunch of action in front of us so I can spring the trap and make it more. Mr. J limps in and Trick Time raises it up to $420. I wonder if that's a little bit of code there. He makes it $420 to go, and the Dock of Felt flat calls from the big blind. Well, it's time to put more money in the middle. $420 plus a caller. I decide to go $1,750. It's a pretty large 3-bet. Action's back over to Trick with a mystery hand, and he puts in the call. Dock of Felt now goes for a weird line. After calling the $420, he decides to rip his entire stack in for $5,650, and the action's back over to me. I think with a hand as strong as Ace King offsuit, we only have one move. I don't want to go 3 ways to the flop. I decide to rip it all in, and if Trick Time finds the call with his 6-4 of diamonds, well, he's going to be even more of a legend than he already is. Turns out that Trick Time does in fact like money just a little bit. He finds the fold, and we're off to a run out versus Dock of Felt, who has pocket jacks. How does he have jacks here? Well, it's a good old-fashioned flip, Ace King versus jacks, and we decide to go twice in this $13,000 pot. I don't know that he has jacks in real time because we keep our cards face down, but for your guys' entertainment, you know I'm in a flip. We're off to 2 runouts. The first board comes pretty great for me, King 9-3. The turn and river are bricks for Dock of Felt. We're gonna take down at least $6,500 in this first half of the pot. The second board is more of the same, King 7-5. I'm now hoping he doesn't have aces. That would be pretty much the only hand that has me scooped on both. But if you remember correctly, his line didn't make too much sense, so after the board runs out clean, we're taking down a $13K pot. And of course, Dock of Felt is not immune to getting a bang sticker afterwards as well. Hand number 34, I'm in the big blind with jacks. Those tricky jacks. How am I gonna play it this time? Well, there's a raise to 130 from Vegas Fiat, a call from Joker, and a 3-bet from Outlaw on the button. All this action means I'm coming in for a 4-bet, and I decide to make it $1,550 to go, which clears the field, and it just shows you there's no good way to play pocket jacks. Well, it looks like the table gave me a lot of respect with that 4-bet in the last hand, so let's mix it up here with my second favorite hand, 7-deuce offsuit. I come in for a 4-bet once again, and funny enough, it's against Outlaw, who 3-bet in the last hand, and he folded that time. Well, let's see what happens now. Vegas Viet has a pretty strong hand with tens, but he decides that it's a battle between myself and Outlaw. He mucks the best hand, Outlaw folds, and the table is disgusted because they all owe me $100. Let's go. As you can see, we are doing quite well tonight, up $12,805. We are in first place, and I have no plans on slowing down. Hand number 51, there's a raise to 200. Mr. J calls, and I call as well, and bang, we flop the king high flush on a queen 7-5 board. Joker bets out small and I put in the call. The turn comes a queen of diamonds. I decide to lead for reasons I can't tell you in this exact moment, but it looks like it was not the right play because the Joker folds his cards. Now I know it's my poker vlog, but I had to include hand number 52 in there. Well, this hand got off the rails. We find ourselves in a three-way all-in. Trick Time had a decision there to call it off with Jack-9 offsuit for around $12,000, and he decides to put on a show for all the viewers, puts in the call, and we're going three ways to a run-out Ace-King, 8-7 of clubs, and Jack-9 offsuit. Well, at the end of the day, Ace-King does in fact hold. Trick Time can't even look at the board, covering his eyes with his hands. It's a massive pot, and Viet puts on a show for the viewers, something I've never seen before in my entire life.
Let's go! Damn, I love champions,
Let me know down in the comments what's the craziest thing you've seen at a poker table, because I think this one takes the cake for me. Remember when he had like 45K in his stack? Well, he finds himself in a weird spot here, queen 9 of diamonds, and tries to bluff into Trick Time, who snaps him off with pocket aces. The stack is already decimated, but then he runs into Outlaw, who has pocket kings versus his king 10. Top pair is no good for Viet. He ends up getting stacked in that hand, and I think the only reasonable thing to do in a situation like this is give you guys a flashback on how he was feeling earlier on in the night.
man, I pay for my bills!
Matt raises it up to 150 with king queen off. Doc of Felt calls, I call, and Joker does as well. We're going four ways to the flop, which comes great for me. Ace Jack 3 with two diamonds, top pair, nut flush draw, and Matt continues to bet. How can life get any better? I decide just to put in the call. A quick tip for you guys is sometimes when you have a pair plus a flush draw, it's better to play your hand as just the pair. If I just raise here, I'm gonna be called by ace queen, ace king, whereas I could just put in the call and spike the 7 of diamonds on the turn. Bang, we turn the nuts. Now I have all possibilities on the table. When Matt bets out for 300, I could call or I could raise. I decide because I'm in position, I'm gonna call, see the 5 of hearts river, and now go for the raise. Matt makes it 550, and I decide to go large, and he snap folds king queen offsuit. It's too bad he didn't have a little bit of a better hand. Might have called me, might have not, but we're taking down hand number 62. Hand number 73 is pretty crazy as well. I'll go over this one quickly. I look down at 6-5 of diamonds from the hijack and raise it up to 300. We're gonna get a 3-bet from Vegas Viet, who has ace 4 of diamonds, and Trick Time puts in the call. I call as well, and all 6 diamonds are in our hand. There can't possibly be any on the flop, while a king 10-6 board comes with 1 diamond. Action checks over to Viet, who goes for a $700 bet. Luckily, Trick Time just calls. I decide to call as well. Look at that, I have 72% chance to win this pot. And look at that turn, the 7 of diamonds peels off. Now we all pick up a flush draw. This could get a little tricky for me, no pun intended, with Trick Time in the mix. The action checks over to Viet, who decides to continue to bet with his nut flush draw for $2,500. Trick now goes for the raise to 10.140, a very specific number, and now my hands are tied. Even though you guys and myself can see that I have the best hand with a pair of 6s, there's just no way I can call off here with my 6-high diamond draw and a pair. So I fold, Vegas Viet folds as well, and Trick Time gets it through. Unfortunate, but I had to throw that one in there to show you guys how aggressive the table was playing. Well, it's my turn to be aggressive. I look down at king queen of diamonds and raise it up to $300. We're gonna pick up a bunch of callers and go off to a flop, which comes queen 7 deuce rainbow. In between two opponents, I start with a check, which gets a bet out of Vegas Viet, who fires out for $415. After Mr. J calls, I decide to go for the check raise. The logic is I want to bloat the pot now versus worse hands, and I also want to go heads up to the turn, and I'm not really trying to go 3 ways. So I make it $1,100 to go, and we're only going to go heads up with Mr. J, the desired outcome, and the turn gives me more ammunition, the king of spades. He checks it over to me, and I think it's a bit of overkill now having 2 pair. If he has a hand like queen 10, queen jack, or maybe a hand like 8-10 or some weird backdoor draw. Mr. J could have anything here. I think checking behind allows him to bluff the river, so that's what I do when the 8 of spades peels off. He does not in fact bluff the river, but I decide to go for a small sizing of $1,700. In this exact spot, he finds the fold, but I wouldn't put it past him in the future to call with a 3rd or 4th pair. Next hand, I raise it up with ace-king offsuit from the +1 to $150. We get 3-bet by joker, Mr. J calls, trick time calls, and the action's back over to me. I think a 4-bet is in order. So far tonight, I've done it twice with jacks and 7 deuce. It's time to do it with ace high now. Ace king offsuit comes in for $1,900. We're gonna get rid of the initial 3-better, which was joker, and usually when that happens, you're gonna take down the pot. I wouldn't complain about that, $1,500 coming my way in profit, but look at that, trick time out of the small blind finds the call. We're going heads up in position to a flop. You guys are going to play along with me in this one. A mystery hand from Trick Time. He goes for the check. An ace-king with a king of diamonds on this low of a board. I decide to start with a check. When you're thinking about betting or checking on the flop, you got to think about who has more of the nuts. Trick Time definitely has more of the 5-6 being the straights. I think pocket 8s I'll have a good amount of, and of course 7s you guys know is my favorite hand, but he's going to have more of the 7-8 suited, so I decide to check behind, and the turn comes the 3 of hearts. He checks it over to me for a second time, and in case he has a hand like king queen, or maybe he has some sort of diamond draw, I want to get value versus non-pairs. Maybe I can also start to tell the story of a overpair and get him to fold a hand like pocket 6s, or pocket 9s, or pocket 5s, something like that. So I decide to bet out for $2,000, and immediately I regret it. He tanks and then goes for the check raise, and he goes large for $85.20. Let's expose his cards now so you can see what I'm up against. 9-10 of diamonds. Of course, the dealer rewards him on the flop by giving him a straight flush draw. He gets sneaky with 2 checks, the flop and the turn, gets the most out of me with a check raise. He's going to take down hand number 76. We do run this out though to see if my ace high would have been good. And of course, Trick Time just hits the river, so even if I find a call or somehow shove on the turn, thinking I'm good with my ace high, he would have got rewarded and take the pot down. The Nick game's back on, and I raise the button with ace 10 offsuit. Pick up a few customers and flop myself top pair, which seems pretty good. Action checks over to me, and I go for a $300 bet. 2 players call with some weird hands. The turn comes the 4 of clubs, actions on me again, and I decide to get tricky and check behind. When the river comes the queen of diamonds, I'm hoping someone caught up, but Mr. J decides to bluff into me with his 9-6 offsuit for busted straight draw, I guess, and fires out for $1,200. I'm gonna pick off this bluff here and put in the call. We're taking down hand number 89, a $4,500 beauty. Checking that turn won me the maximum. I raise ace king offsuit now up to $150 out of the +1 position. Joker calls and Mr. J comes in for a 3-bet. Alarm bells kind of going off in my head because Mr. J usually just calls. Not too much 3-betting out of him tonight at least. The action's back over to me, and I decide just to flat here with my ace-king offsuit. I know most of the time you're going to want to be 4-betting, but I think mixing in some calls as well can't be terrible. The only downside is you're going to bring in Joker a good percentage of the time. It looks like he's finding the call here. We're going 3 ways to the flop. But the upside of just calling here instead of 4-betting is my range is pretty capped. So people aren't going to put me on exactly my hand. Ace-king offsuit on an ace-queen deuce board. I like my chances in this one. Action checks over to Mr. J, who's going to bet his range for $700. I could check raise here, but what am I really representing when I don't 4-bet pre? I'm not going to have aces or queens. I could have ace-queen, that makes some sense. I'm also going to have some flush draws like king 10 of clubs, king jack of clubs, but I decide just to call here with my top pair best kicker, and Joker comes in as well. The turn is a double-edged sword. It comes the king of clubs, bringing in 2 pair for myself, but it also puts a club flush possibility out there. I'm hoping my opponents don't have 2 clubs. Action checks over to Mr. J, who doesn't slow down. He fires out for $2,400. I think I'm pretty handcuffed at this point. I can only call. Raising is too aggressive. I'm only going to get called by better hands, so I decide just to put in the call, and now Joker does what I didn't want to see. He rips his entire stack all in. To make matters worse, he actually has a good amount behind, 86.45. It's like another 6,245 for me to call. Before we get to my action, you can see that Mr. J was just dicking around there with 9-5 of diamonds, so when I said alarm bells were going off in my head because he 3-bet preflop, I'm taking note of this, and I'm always 4-betting him now in the future. Back over to my action, it's a tough spot. On the surface, I have 2 pair, but I can't really think about many bluffs that Joker would have here. For instance, if he just had the ace of clubs in his hand for a semi-bluff, he has top pair, so why wouldn't he just call and proceed on rivers? The more I think about this, it's a pretty easy fold. He's only ripping it here with low flushes that don't want another club to come. I don't even think a set of queens or kings would ever just rip it here. They'd probably wait for a board pairing card and then get all the money in. So after a long tank, I never do this, you guys, I end up calling the clock on myself, which means I have 1 minute to act. I use up the entire minute and then find the correct fold because Joker had 7-3 of clubs, exactly what I thought. He ends up showing the low flush, didn't want another one to come out. We end up running out the river and it was a great shove by him because another club peeled off. He would have been scared. Unfortunate, I didn't have a club in my hand because I definitely would have called off there. And he's gonna take down that nice sized pot. I drill 2 pair, he drills the flush. What a cooler. I think that last hand was a great example of how folding can actually maximize your profits. You always see highlights on YouTube and social media of people winning large pots with massive hands, but folding hands like that instead of calling off for an additional 6K, well, that increases your bankroll and your profits, and I'm definitely proud of that one. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the hand of the night. Before we get there though, I want to point out that 87% of you guys watching this video are not already subscribed. What are you doing? Click that subscribe button, help out the channel. You'll see more massive pots like this one. I raise up pocket 3s from the cutoff up to $300. We're gonna get called in a few spots. 4 ways to the flop we go, which comes A7-3, bang, we flop bottom set. The action checks over to me and I go for a half pot size bet for $600. Action folds around to Trick Time, who I expect will call with a lot of his hands, but instead he goes for a surprising line and check raises me right away to 24-20. At this point with bottom set, I'm thinking about how I can get all the money in the middle. If it's a cooler and he has my favorite hand, pocket 7s, well, so be it. We're just gonna have to play for stacks. I decided that because I'm in position, I'm just gonna call and try to peel off a clean turn card. At first glance, it seems pretty clean, but other than his spade flush draws, what other hands are raising the flop? Well, 4-5 of hearts would come to mind, and that 6 of diamonds would be the gin card for him. Being in position gives me a big advantage. I get to see how much he wants to bet on this turn. Of course, he could always check, but I don't really think he's raising the flop to check this turn card. So into the 6K pot comes a massive overbet, 84-20. He's going for a polarizing sizing. He's basically saying he either has a flush draw or he has a set of 7s or 4-5. With bottom set, I've committed myself to this pot. I can't be folding this strong of a hand. So after counting out my chip stack and realizing I really only have 1 move, if he has some draws, we gotta get the money in now. I can't just call. He bricks out with his king high flush draw and then he just checks the river. So I decided to rip it all in and we get snap called. Getting snap called is never good. My heart is in my stomach. Does he have a better hand than me? Or is he just calling that fast with a draw knowing that he's pot committed?
I don't know. Generally, do it twice. I will. Sure.
You guys heard that right. He said that we are behind, so we're gonna run it 2 times in this $40,000 pot, the largest pot I've played by far here at Champions Club in Houston. And we're gonna need some run good from you guys. Hit that like button if you haven't already. When the cards hit their backs, I don't know what Trick Time's talking about. We have him smoked with bottom set. He just has top 2 pair. This is a dream spot for me, but we don't turn our cards over in real time, so I have no idea what I'm up against, and I'm assuming it's pocket 7s or 4-5. We're gonna run 2 boards. The first one comes clean for me, and the second board comes the ace of clubs. Look at that. He rivered a better boat. Aces full of 7s beat 3s full of aces. Of course you guys know that. That's basic poker. But in the moment, look at my face. I think I lost this one and got scooped. Before the 2 river cards came out, Trick Time had me so convinced in my head that I was dead to a 3 that I just turned my cards over and assumed that I was getting scooped in this massive pot. But after the dealer starts cutting out the chips into 2 piles, meaning she's chopping it up, I ask, how do we chop? Everyone seems confused how I can't see how we're chopping. They all see how unlucky I got on that second river card, and then I finally realize that Trick Time, who only usually runs it once, decided to be a nice guy versus me and run it twice for like one of the first times in his life. And of course, when he runs it twice, he gets lucky on that second board. It was a $20,000 ace of clubs there. Almost any other card in the deck would have been great for me, but that's how poker goes sometimes. You run it twice to mitigate risk. I know I'm gonna get flamed in the comments. Everyone's gonna say, just run it once, Wolfgang, but it's a $40,000 pot. I don't know what kind of bankrolls you guys are playing with, but $40,000 is massive for me. And I run it twice and get owned on that second board, chopping it up though with Trick Time. He's a nice guy, and as you can see from this video, he definitely gives action. Maximum pain though for me. I thought about this the entire flight back to Dallas. Just a brutal spot, one that you want to win because it's a $20,000 difference. So even though we didn't win that massive 40K pot versus Trick Time, as you saw from Vegas Viet, things could be a lot worse. Ended up playing around 26% of my hands and booking a $10,000 profit. I had an amazing time here at Champions Club as always. If you guys like this video, there's 2 more on your screen right now from Champions Club. Good luck on the felt, you guys, and I'll catch you in the next video as always. Peace! What was that? You trying to give me a chance?
I tried to give you a chance, and I damn thought I.
He only runs it once, and he's being nice to me, and he runs it twice. And then, of course, he hits the second board. The legend, Trick Time. Come out to Houston.